Hello, everyone. We have with us today Chris Kubic, Chief Information Security Officer at Fidelis Cybersecurity. Welcome, Chris. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be with you as well, Anita.
Thank you. Chris, tell us, what are some of the biggest cybersecurity concerns at the moment?
Well, I would say the biggest cybersecurity concern for CISOs right now is ransomware. Ransomware gangs are becoming increasingly sophisticated and stealthy. They're going after larger, better defended targets. They're stealing and then threatening to publicly post sensitive data, and then they're encrypting business critical systems to bring business operations to a halt. And this is all designed to create greater levels of pain for victims and increase the likelihood that the victim's going to pay the ransom. And unfortunately, they're being very successful with their strategies. Ransomware is certainly on the rise and just growing exponentially. I would say to also add to this challenge, our networks are becoming more complex. Companies are moving more and more to cloud-based services, and they're increasing their remote connectivity to support their work from home employees. And then finally, many organizations are having a difficult time just finding skilled cybersecurity professionals to monitor their networks. And the staff they have are really overwhelmed by just the constant flood of new security issues and attacks being announced on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And how do you know and understand your environment?
That's a good question. And unfortunately, it can be a difficult question for many organizations to answer, especially as I mentioned, as they push more and more of their IT systems out of their data centers and into the cloud. At Fidelis, we kind of refer to this visibility as terrain visibility or terrain mapping. And it really comes down to kind of knowing what assets are connected to your networks, how they're configured, who those assets communicate with, whether they're up to date on their software, updates and patches, which of those devices are, exposed to the internet, third parties, other high risk networks, and most importantly, which ones hold your sensitive data and support your business critical operations. And I think the key here is automating the collection and analysis of the data you need to build this real world terrain map of your network and keep it up to date with all the constant changes being made across your enterprise. But kind of by identifying and tracking business critical and high risk assets and kind of putting a focus on that, it does allow your security team to focus their limited resources on kind of monitoring those assets that have they're most likely to impact the security of your enterprise. And that can address one of the challenges I mentioned earlier of just having limited staff. So the more you can do to kind of focus them on what's important, the better.
Right. Now, how do you get the balance right between security and a company's agility and flexibility to innovate?
Well, I certainly agree that that we need security to empower the business and not limit innovation. And I can certainly say that historically that has not been the case. Many organizations still view security as an impediment to business. However, I think all the recent high visibility cyber attacks are kind of changing this perception, and some organizations are truly beginning to view security as an enabler. I think the key to making this shift is to ensure that your organization's senior leadership really understands the cyber risks and understands their organization's risk tolerance. And by risk tolerance, I mean understanding what cyber events would cause severe or unrecoverable damage to the organization, and then understanding how well the organization is positioned to ensure that these cyber events can be quickly detected and blocked before significant damage is done. It's really important to have everybody on the same page here, and by having these leadership level discussions about cyber risks and business impacts, I think you will see a shift in leadership's views on the importance of cybersecurity and the need to really strike that proper balance between security and business flexibility.
How do you prioritize security spend?
That's certainly a challenge as well. You're really trying to determine, how much is good enough, and where do you get the biggest bang for the buck. And, as I mentioned previously, really understanding your organization's risk tolerance, their risk appetite, kind of what are those events you can't afford to allow happen, and as well as understanding your organization's, sensitive data, their business critical systems, and those high risk systems. This will help you to prioritize your security spend and focus, as I mentioned, the limited resources you have on the things that are, most likely impact your organization. I think it's also important to kind of balance your security portfolio, across a couple different areas. And I usually, when I'm talking to folks, I usually talk about, kind of balancing your investment across, protecting and hardening in your enterprise, for example, maintaining good cyber hygiene by patching, vulnerable systems in a timely manner. I mean, unpatched vulnerabilities continue to be kind of the go-to techniques for attackers to gain initial access. And then kind of the second area is to put in place, processes and, technologies to allow you to actively defend your enterprise from these sophisticated attackers, like the ones we're seeing, with all the recent ransomware attacks. And then, finally, kind of having a good and well-rehearsed, incident response plan, so that you can quickly react to a breach, should the attackers bypass your defenses. And, kind of looping back to active defense, I think this is, really critical to helping your security team find the proverbial needle in a haystack and really stop the attack before significant damage is done. And certainly active defense is an area where Fidelis has a lot of innovative capabilities to offer our customers.
Right. And what does security look like with the future of tech-enabled environments in smart cities?
That's a great question. And, this ties back to something I've talked about quite a bit. Our networks are getting more complex, and, part of that complexity is driven by connectivity. We have, 5G networks, we have satellite-based internet services, we have smart cities, and these are all providing ubiquitous connectivity across the globe. And through this connectivity, more and more things are getting connected to our networks, our applications, our services, whether we're talking, remote connectivity for work from home employees, Internet of Things devices of all, sorts, flavors, operational technology devices like building control systems, or, here in the US with the recent Colonial Pipeline attack, the attack against the fuel delivery system. Personal devices, medical systems, smart TVs. I mean, the list just goes on and on. We're connecting more and more things to our networks. And, this digital revolution is really stressing the traditional perimeter-based security capabilities that we have in place, because the perimeter is really becoming fuzzy. It's hard to determine where to actually put the security devices when you're in this kind of perimeter defense environment. So as a result, you're seeing the cybersecurity industry respond with new solutions aimed at really aligning cybersecurity with the digital transformation to better support security for these complex and interconnected networks. And, a couple of examples there, Gartner's defined a new class of security capabilities, which they call extended detection and response, or XDR. And this is really a platform-based approach to security that integrates security across networks, endpoints, and the cloud to really provide a more transactional approach to security. You're also seeing adoption of zero trust architectures that really combine this transactional security with risk-aware access controls to determine, whether or not data should be shared, based on who's accessing the data, whether they, what their job is, what access they actually need, kind of where they're accessing the data from, and how well that data can be protected on the device they're accessing the data from. So, the key is to have, as we talked about, to have kind of visibility across your digital transactions, no matter where the data and services reside, how the data is being accessed, or ultimately where the data flows.
Yeah, coming to the last question, Chris, can you just tell us something more about Fidelis Cybersecurity, how it's, figuring into the whole, cybersecurity landscape? Just a bit about Fidelis Cybersecurity.
Yeah, actually, Fidelis Cybersecurity is really kind of positioned on a lot of the areas that we've talked about. I mean, we offer an XDR platform, Our platform is able to pull data together from a kind of rich set of sensors that we have that can monitor the traditional perimeters, as well as can kind of internally monitor your networks, whether that's on-premise kind of traditional data center kind of networks or cloud-based networks. And then we also have specialized sensors for things like web and email. So we're able to cover lots of different points within the network and really be able to monitor these transactions. And then we add to that, we have endpoint agent or endpoint sensors that go on the endpoints, and they're able to monitor the, kind of the processes and kind of everything that's going on that endpoint. We're able to bring that all together in our XDR platform. And the value there is we can really correlate what we're seeing in the network with what we're seeing on the endpoints, through analytics and automation. And, that correlation is important because if you see something in one part of your network, it may or may not be an issue. But if you start to see it cropping up in lots of places, then it's obviously a much bigger issue. And, we're able to use that correlation to really produce what we call high confidence and actionable alerts, things that are truly, threats to your network. And then I'd say the other unique thing that we have at Fidelis Cybersecurity is we've integrated deception capabilities into our XDR platform. And I think that's unique in the industry. And, the value there is, we have a lot of automation in our platform to build out a very realistic real world deception overlay that rides on top of your networks. And we're able to populate these decoys with what we call breadcrumbs, interesting pieces of information to lure the attacker in. And so, the value of this is there's no legitimate reason for a user of the network to interact with the decoys. So when we see somebody interacting with the decoys, it's, almost 100% of, an attack that's going on in your network. And so from this, once again, we can correlate what we're seeing in our deception overlay network with what we're seeing on the network and the endpoints to get to really high confidence and actionable alerts. And, as we've talked about, this really helps your, focus your limited security staff on those things that are going to impact your network and really find those kind of stealthy and sophisticated attackers within your infrastructure.
Right. That was a very informative conversation, Chris. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Okay, great. Well, it was my pleasure to be with you.